Reveille.
Look at us now, tip to tip.
Ooh, Jesus.
Shout out to Morning Kombat.
Do you want a margarita? Yes! My God!
It's us doing what we love. It's time to bang.
This used to be a respectable outfit, and then goddamn Amtrak got in the way. Hi, everybody. We are not supposed to be here at this time, but here we are just the same. Welcome on this December 2nd, 2024, for another edition of Morning Kombat. This time remotely, not intentionally. We're trying to salvage what we had. Hi, everyone. Two hosts for this whole product. This guy, LT. My name is Luke Thomas. That gentleman over there, the king of CTE from CT. By the way, with the HIV... it's Brian Campbell.
Yeah.
Hi, Brian Campbell.
Luke, hold me now. I'm 6 feet from the edge, and I'm thinking, you know what I mean? I've been thinking maybe that first album by Creed, kind of underrated, to be fair, although that song wasn't on it. Luke, I was not going to be in studio today because I caught the, what are we saying I have, Luke?
You have full-blown AIDS.
Okay, yeah, I caught the FBA, Luke. Okay, but thank you to the Red Eye Flights and the 4 screaming children. You know, it's really like I cannot go to the West Coast without getting massively sick. It's really either that or you gave it to me, or maybe Ryan Garcia gave it to me.
It's possible I gave it to you because I was sick in studio last week, so that's a fair culprit. What I will say is we are sorry for the show being at 1 p.m. today. Brian's here. He had always planned to do the show in his defense from the bunker there in Connecticut. Oh, look at him. I mean, wow. Look at this guy just dying right. Don't you go dying on me. In any case, I was going to go in studio and host from there. But then something fun happened along the way. It's called American Infrastructure. Took a 6:30 a.m. train out of D.C. We get stuck in Philly, and I'm thinking, oh, it must just be my train because I had to take a different one that doesn't have track priority. And I looked around, and then I realized all of the trains are from northbound, not moving. They then tell us it's going to be a 3-hour delay before we even start to get back to New York. That's a no-go. Because, by the way, we have a limited time to use the studio. Like, if we don't use it, we can't use it anymore. And then they canceled all northbound travel completely. There was a wire issue, apparently, between Newark and New York. So I had to turn right back around and go back to D.C. So I spent 2 hours in Philly today. Brian Campbell didn't get a cheesesteak, didn't see a fist fight. Philly, very overrated, if I do say so myself.
I've always felt that Philly was very overrated, but I will say this, Luke, that you should have stayed for the Knucklemania press conference coming up. No Conor McGregor announced for arrival, but
I wonder why.
Yeah, but they do have a good card coming up in Philly that they're going to promote with Eddie Alvarez and company. But yeah, Luke, a poor turn of events, but that's the MK way. So hey, it's afternoon combat. Welcome. Apparently we're going head to head with Ariel. I mean, let's go.
Fuck up our numbers big time, but what can you do?
Let's go. All right. It's I declare war on the nation of Canada, Luke. All right.
Hey, Canada's nice. Poutine overrated, but Canada in general quite nice. So thanks
Luke,
to everyone.
Hold on. Before you get into anything else, I got to get your take on Hunter Biden getting pardoned by the president of the United States, Luke.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I'll say this. They have a test as a politician, like who would you want to have a beer with? And there's many answers you could give. If you're going to smoke crack, I feel like that's your guy, right? That's
who, Hunter? Yeah, like if I have to use narcotics,
if you're going to get into fentanyl and sex parties, I feel like he's the guy. I feel
like I have a connection to him only because he got caught with prostitutes in my hometown of Naugatuck, Connecticut, at the same little motel dive that people go to after prom and use drugs and stuff. So
yeah, that's awesome.
It's just apropos. It's just perfect. But wow, what a turn of events, Luke. Let's see who else. Let's see. I don't know what's going on in this world anymore.
Let's get the show started. So
the only thing I know about that's right in this world, Luke, is the damn smart cage in the middle of the desert. All right, that was right this weekend.
The fights were pretty good. So let's talk about this. We're going to get to today the PFL 2024 World Championships, which took place in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. Actually a fair amount to like, a lot to dislike too. We're going to talk about how we think PFL should change things moving forward in 2025. We're going to get to some boxing roundup news. The Lamont Peterson Tank Davis presser is tomorrow in New York City. But also, did Boots duck Vergil Ortiz? That would be quite bad. And then, of course, this is also UFC 310 Fight Week. We'll set the tone today for the fights to come on Saturday. And, of course, we'll do a big preview on Friday's show. So thumbs up if you're watching. We appreciate it. Hit subscribe if you haven't here on the channel. You can see all of our socials right down there all across the screen like this. BC, how's the Brian Campbell experience going?
It's stable. It's just getting by right now as I am physically, but hopefully I've got bigger plans for it in the new year. I just wanted to alert you that us waiting so long to start the show has meant one thing to one man, and that's Long Island Luke Nocita, who's been in that studio, Luke, I think for about 8 hours at this point.
Yeah, how are you doing there, Long Island Luke, who actually did make it to the studio and has to sit there like a bitch?
Yeah, he does.
Good old Long Island Railroad coming in clutch there. I live here now, though, guys. I'll see you next Monday.
Yes. How did you do on your betting for the 2024 PFL World Championships?
I had Yag Shamuradov upsetting Impa, and I had Dakota Ditcheva by KO, courtesy of MK Donk Danger Mouse.
There you go. Very good. All right. So, BC,
Mystic
we have
Mouse.
We have a lot to get to today, if you're okay with that. Am I forgetting anything? Oh, yeah. morningcombat@gmail.com. morningcombat@gmail.com. That is the place to send us anything you have related to the show. The producers will see it. There's a decent chance that BC and I will not. And we'd like to
Luke, while I both look and feel washed, I did want to interrupt this broadcast and say you are looking very fit these days, Luke. Are you on an upswing at the moment?
It's partly this True Classic tea, which we all love. True Classic, right?
Okay.
Hard to go wrong with True Classic. I got a haircut and a beard trim. And yes, I have upped the intensity in the gym. I have upped the intensity.
And by the gym, you mean your front yard, you white trash dirt?
No,
yeah. Right?
Now it's in the 30s, and when it's in the 30s, I don't like working out in the front yard anymore. So I have to kind of.
It's working for you, so keep it up, Luke. Let's get into the smart cage. Here we go.
All right. So let's do it now. Thank you again for everyone for accommodating all of these changes. We hope to be back to a normal schedule on Monday in terms of the in-studio show. Obviously, Friday is always remote. With that in mind, let's get to topic number one, the PFL 2024 World Championships, or the championships more generally. BC, there was a lot to like, and of course, there is something to say about the main event, but I think we all need to just be honest and say that the big star, the big breakout performance that happened on Saturday was from Dakota Ditcheva. I've been saying Ditcheva, but it's not. It's Ditcheva. She is, in my judgment, BC, the big winner on this entire thing. There's a big question about her future, but let's talk about her present. Where does she rank after just bludgeoning Taila Santos to win the tournament? Where does she rank among all flyweights worldwide?
Very high, very high. And I'm not going to act like I wasn't late to the party, Luke, in terms of really understanding how good she could be. But to be fair, there are levels to this game. And even though she has looked good in this calendar year, moving up from winning the PFL Europe Championships to moving up to the full level in the tournament this year. But the opponents that she beat were pretty damn good. But when you get to the level of Taila Santos, a former UFC title challenger, someone who you could argue in that split decision loss was as close as you can get to taking that title from the great Valentina Shevchenko, this was the fight where really Ditcheva was going to show us for real, right? And I'm so happy that she ultimately did have to go through it a little bit, 2+ rounds. And obviously, she breaks through, breaks down, and knocks out Santos, and it's such a big breakthrough win. But Luke, I'm almost more mature or more, excited for her and some of that maturity she showed in legitimately being tested in the clinch, taken down, but never staying down, getting right back up, and really showing that if she can keep the game, if she can keep the fight in her terms against her A side, her kickboxing, which she was able to do here against Santos, it is seemingly an inevitability that she will break you down and get you out of there. Santos was tough. She took a lot of flush shots, particularly to the body, and then she ultimately just broke down. I didn't think Ditcheva could do it with this level of ease on this level. Now, again, compared to other fights, it wasn't easy. We had to really see some of what she's made of, which is great for her and her development. But it turns out, Luke, I was way off on what she's actually made of. So to answer your question, I mean, she's top 5, no question. I hope that they have enough good opponents that they can creatively make some fights for her where we find out exactly where she fits in. Because if you can't take her down and you have to contend with what she brings best, you're going to have issues. She's that polished, that powerful, that confident. The technique is there. Yeah, now I know why everybody else was getting so excited. I had to see it maybe on a higher level. Well, how's this for a higher level? Co-main event, $1 million and a very good opponent. Dude, she didn't just pass the test. She kicked a hole through my TV screen, okay? So big win for, let's say it. Let's not even say it with any hyperbole because it's already true. Big win for the face of the PFL, Dakota Ditcheva.
I would say Dakota Ditcheva is probably no worse than top 5 in the world, probably. I mean, you could maybe say on the bubble of 5, but I actually think probably well within 5. I don't think it's crazy to suggest she could even be inside the top 3. That's obviously significantly more speculative. I don't think you can necessarily make the case that she's number 1 yet. But I'm going to be just like you, BC. I'm going to say that I had seen some of her fights before. Actually, I saw the Bishop fight this season, which is actually one of the tougher opponents that she and Santos had through the course of their PFL experience. And so I had some idea of how good she is, but I was a little bit skeptical about some of the hype, just not really thinking that PFL had something that could be special. But I want to be very clear. They have something extremely special. As indicated, I think top 5 at worst, 26 years of age. Dude, she didn't just beat Taila Santos. She punished her. She punished her everywhere. She was slick in the clinch. She either nullified her completely or was able to take her down, backstepping out of clinch exchanges, whether it was punches at range, whether it was in close with elbows, whether it was front kicks to the face, and everything in between, switching stances, retreating at angles. She did almost everything she wanted to here. And BC, I'm going to say this, and I don't know exactly how to couch it. It might sound a little bit bold, but I really do mean it. This was the most excited I'd been about a female fighter performing in the cage, because we can't say the octagon, in the cage, in the last couple of years.
So would you say it was more than when Blanchfield ran through Andrade and we thought for a hot second, like she was the future of the sport there, and she still might be, but we got to see her take a humbling loss in between.
So that one was also pretty electric, but if you go back to that, you'll recall Blanchfield, while it's still just in the end being a bull and running her over a little bit, did take big punches along the way. I think Santos landed maybe a couple of punches. There was some controlling on the ground for very, very brief moments, but she didn't show nearly the same level. Now, granted, these are very different fights. Jessica Andrade is a punisher with her hands. Taila Santos is much more about control. I understand that. I'm just sort of pointing out, like, if we're measuring what a successful performance is constituted by, yes, the opponent type and quality is obviously important, but the quality is all there. And she was better, not exactly everywhere, but everywhere she wanted to be, she was better. I have not been this jazzed and pumped up about the future of a female fighter in quite some time. This is a absolute diamond in the rough that PFL has found. And BC, let's be clear about it. It's not just that she is young and still very, very good, or that she has excellent finishing ability. She had 3 first-round wins on the way to getting this one, which is only in the second round over a very credentialed opponent in Taila Santos. And then she gets on the mic, BC, and has the skills there too. This is what you're looking for, ladies and gentlemen. Somebody who can beat world-ranked opposition in their mid-20s and still have it when it turns on with the microphone and the camera. She's got it all. Now, how far can she go, BC? I don't know what you think. It's hard to really say at this point exactly, because there's a lot of tough opponents that she could be fighting in 2025 and beyond. But this was not just a standout performance. This was a breath of fresh air for the women's game, and it couldn't have happened any sooner.
Yeah, no question about it. And I thought it was at first cute, but a little bit cheesy when they throw in the lipstick. But then when you find out it was tied to things Taila Santos had said coming in about Ditcheva being nothing more than a model or a Barbie. And then I didn't realize Santos at the weigh-in had done the same thing, put the lipstick on as almost showing her up. So to have the, ability to jab in there with verbally after finishing and saying, well, this model just kicked your ass, biatch. I don't even remember if she threw the biatch in there, Luke, but it hit with that same level of, snark and impact. Yeah, I mean, look, there's one thing for a promotion or a sector of the fan base or part of the journalism field to say, oh my God, this fighter's coming on. It's another thing to prove it on this level. It had to be against an opponent this good, and it had to be against an opponent who kind of made her work a little bit and not fully frustrated her, but it wasn't just easy slicing through. That's what we needed to see. Now, to literally go from almost unheard of outside of hardcore MMA circles to now. I don't think it's crazy, like I said, to call her the face of the franchise. She kind of filled the role that PFL lost with Kayla Harrison exiting in terms of somebody who was red hot and doing something unique that you had to see. What is PFL going to do with it? That's the big question now, Luke, because we are talking and will talk in this show about how maybe they can change things up or alter things to succeed. But even if they can't get her the quality of opponents that will further her career, you just want to see her act as active as possible. And normally I'm against the PFL season format in 2024 and largely still am, because of how brutal it is for what they put fighters through, having to fight 4 times in essentially like a 5 or 6 month period, which is insane for elite MMA, you know. But to be able to get her consistently out there and be a someone that they can feature and like, this is a big shot in the arm for PFL. We've killed them all year, and for the most part I think they've deserved it. But you left this co-main event saying to yourself, obviously no one knew it was going to happen, but saying to yourself, that should have been the main event, because that's the biggest story of the night, and that's going to be one of the biggest things they have going for them entering the new year.
Let's look at this picture here that I sent to Long Island Luke, kind of to this point, BC. So here is basically the last moment where she's finishing off Taila Santos with brutal body shots. BC, something else we didn't even mention very quickly, you know, not just attacking the head, but going to the body, like distributing the targeting was also very effective.
Those push head kicks, Luke, that she was doing,
yeah,
those were absolutely legit and were completely forcing Santos away from being dangerous on the feet. She had to constantly be on the lookout for those. Like, it's wild, the variety and the danger that she mixed in.
No question. At every range and from every side, she had a weapon. Really quickly, go back to this photo if you can. Look at the crowd. So this is the co-main event. And I bring this all up to say there's obviously nobody there. Okay, thank you, Long Island Luke. And there's the dude wipes drop of the night. That's interesting. They one time had an ad about trying to keep your slam piece clean. And I was like, I think you guys need help. But okay, neither here nor there. What I bring this all up to say, BC, is you have this situation now where there's this thing called Vision 2030, I believe it's called 2030, from the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, which is this attempt to diversify their economy through a number of ways, but one of the chief ones is through sports and entertainment. And if you look at that photo, you then can see that, at least on some level, and we've seen this even with some of the big boxing fights, and even to an extent with the UFC, but certainly in combat sports more generally, and PFL in particular, there's no audience for it there. Like, it doesn't exist. And I bring this all up to say, BC, is I have heard that they've had some really rough contract negotiations behind the scenes with PFL. You know, my understanding is that, you know, could she do another season? I think it's possible, but I don't think her and her team want to do that, nor should they. We'll talk about what to do about it in a minute, BC, but I just feel like this. Tell me if you think I'm wrong. You've got something incredibly special here with a 26-year-old, something short of, but could be a phenom in the women's game, who can do everything, who's got the exact style you would want someone to have, could be important for the UK market. You can't keep putting them in front of audiences like that, in situations like that, or in the greater context of tournaments like that, and think you're going to be able to retain them long term. It simply will not work.
Right.
You will drive them to unhappiness given the alternatives immediately. Am I missing something?
No, and I think it's a part of it was almost a team effort. She had a pitch ready in the post-fight interview to give the PFL about, look, the role she's on, how hot of a market Manchester is. There, you know, a bunch of fighters on the roster that have connections there, Brandon Loughnane included. And Dan Hardy, the interviewer, friend of the program, obviously being biased, being from that area, helped her push it along. But I think it is an interesting topic of conversation for the PFL, which unfortunately, Luke, and look, that on camera, it didn't look as empty as that picture noted, probably because they did WWE house show style and pushed all the people to the hard cam side. Understandable, you get it. But the news that just came out in the last couple of weeks with PFL partnering with Dubai, you know, which is going to host that big card in January with Usman Nurmagomedov atop it. I don't know if we're going in that right direction, but I thought that her and Dan Hardy teamed up there to really maybe say publicly what PFL should be doing and going after markets that they actually have the potential of being able to sell tickets. Manchester being a potential big one in there, probably Ireland the same. So I really think you're right, Luke, and I think that this is how you build fans and how you build the promotion the old-fashioned way. I get the new concepts that they have in terms of making new money schemes, but there's nothing that competes with the old-fashioned way of getting on the road, bringing talent that people want to go out of their ways to see. This didn't do justice to this product. Like, all in all, I actually thought it was a pretty good card. It was excruciatingly long. I didn't have to watch it live. I was able to watch it after the fact and fast forward, but I saw the tweets live. I felt bad for the people that put in like a 9-10 hour day. God bless y'all. But like, it actually was a good card. And for all we said negative about it coming in, there was a few guys coming out of here that I want to see again, but then to have it in that setting, I mean, Luke, is that the way it has to be? Are they only going to survive financially with the investments that now both sides of the Middle Eastern combat world have made here?
I mean, if you don't have a fan base, you have to have a B2B business, right? I don't know how else you do it. If you're not consumer facing, there's no other alternative. You're either one of the two, essentially, in that is a possible. So yes, I think that they have to be if they can't come up with a fan base, but I think that they should try. I think that they should change their product in some kind of way. Now, we'll get to that in just a minute, but BC, you mentioned the pacing. So as I understand it, like from the PFL's perspective, because I had some people chirping at me about it from, maybe inside that world a little bit. And their claim is that like, well, it was differently labeled. Like there was the Mina thing that was part of the same event, but it was labeled differently. I don't think that that's very effective as an argument when you have 10 title fights and people are just accustomed to watching at full.
Yeah, if you got the potential to have 16 5-round fights on your card, that's a you problem, not an us problem, okay?
Yeah, it's not a marketing or packaging problem in that particular sense. Also, what I would say is I did think that the main card went at a pretty decent speed, but I clocked it, and the first fight on the card doesn't start within the broadcast until 28 minutes and 22 seconds. That's a little much. Yes. Kevin Kay, who used to run Spike TV, again told me years ago when they had Bellator, they wanted to make sure that when the broadcast started, the fans could see the two fighters in the cage right away. Yes. There was no fat on that. There's so much fat on
I
these
can echo
PFL
that, Luke. When I was on the last 2 years of ESPN Friday Night Fights in 2014, that area, they had an idealism that they had to get to the first fight within, I think it was the first 4 minutes of the broadcast. So the opening shot always was arena, showing the two guys in the ring, like a 30-second speech, and then we're into the first fight. And I'm not saying it has to be that quick, but I agree with you. That was a bit unnecessary. Even though I'll say, like, I watched their fighter features closely before the fights to try to see, the effort they're putting in. I mean, look, they're not incapable of delivering, I think, what we think they should be, Luke, is what I'm trying to say. And this, I think, in the end, for all we said negative coming in, I think it was a win all across the card. I think they won on Friday, is what I'm trying to say.
They definitely did. We'll talk about how to change your product. My basic issue with doing 6 title fights, 6 tournament winners, is that in order to tell the story of any one individual tournament, there's all of this subplot that they have to share with the audience and all of these packaging and highlight reels and everything else. And so if you only had, like, say 2 of those on a card and then just 4 really good fights or even 3 really good fights, it's a lot easier to put those big elements into the broadcast because it's not taking up so much time. But when you have 6 of them, it's just a lot harder. So the question is, like, do you really need 6 for a card? It sounds, 6 is better than 2. That must be tremendous. But then there's costs associated, I think, with doing it that way. All right, BC, neither here nor there. If we can, let's get back to the other pieces of this card that are worth mentioning. Now, strong night for Russian fighters. I'm not going to go individually through them, but I'm going to say
Luke, they were all Russian fighters. Yeah. Okay,
strong night. So you had Hizrev, Goltsov, Musayev, and Robotinov. By the way, in Robotinov beating Primus, that's still Bellator versus Bellator, but a Bellator guy won. And then in Yakshimuradov versus Impa, it's Bellator versus PFL, a Bellator guy won.
Shout out to Turkmenistan with a champion there, Luke.
No doubt about it. Right? He was, I mean, when he was in the Bellator tourney that we promoted, I was like, he's going to get smoked. But here he is a few years later doing pretty good. All right, BC, of those ones I mentioned in the main event, Hizrev, who beat Brendan Loughnane, Goltsov, who beat Popov, Musayev, who beat Umalatov, and then Robotinov, who I just mentioned, beat Brent Primus. Among those 4, who had the most impressive win in 2024 campaign?
It's hard, man. It's a hard question to answer. I mean, how do you say the guy in the main event's last name?
Hizrev.
Hizrev.
Yeah.
Dude, he's 18-0 now and beat the crap out of a very tough ex-champion in Brendan Loughnane, bloodied him up, couldn't get the finish, but really just bodied him across dominant rounds. I guess 2 of the 3 judges gave 1 round to Loughnane in the end. It could have been that, Luke, but I also got to be honest. I was mispronouncing Denis Goltsov's last name for his entire career. I never took him that seriously outside of just like another heavyweight the PFL has. But he got into insane shape. He's made a nice transformation. And then to see him against a red-hot fighter was a tough matchup here against Oleg Popov. And the almost ease in which he submitted him with the triangle in round 1, I got to say, for having not many opponents that you'd care to see against Francis Ngannou, which could be a future problem for the, it's a problem the promotion, among the most important things they have to solve next year. I come out of this going, you know what? Goltsov has maxed himself out here. Let's see what he can do. I wouldn't hate a Goltsov-Ngannou fight. So if that's the stakes I'm talking about, I got to probably pick Goltsov here most impressive, even though some of the other wins were maybe a little bit more eye-catching from the knockout or what have you. But yeah, I mean, are all these guys Ali guys? I don't like. He used to kind of run this place, right? This is kind of an impressive night of or day of action across the board for Russian fighters, because a few of these guys we may have known before, but I don't think they looked as finished as they did on Friday. There's some strong wins. Who caught your fancy the most, Luke, out of that group of Ruskies?
Probably Shamil Musayev, because he beat an undefeated Magomed Umalatov, which I thought by itself was pretty impressive. Now he's got, let's call it, unusual fat in areas that can sometimes be populated when you take performance-enhancing drugs wrong. I don't know if that's exactly what happened to him. It is a little suspicious, but be that as it may,
I mean, you're getting like, is he left nipple feels or no? Right nipple?
I don't know what his situation is. It just looked a little weird. I'll put it that
Marquez
way.
back knee? I mean, what's the levels here, Luke? All right.
It looked a little weird. I'll leave it like that.
All right.
But his performance was still top notch. And again, if you're going to be cleared to fight, there's USADA there, everything's, it's above board. Let it rip. He, with that absolutely brilliant left hook, dropping Molotov and finishing him off, was fan-freaking-tastic. I was extremely impressed by that. The campaign, he had to fight the same fighter twice, so it's not as impressive. But just like in terms of the guy who looked the most menacing, it's either him. I also think Rabadinov looked fucking awesome. He premised multiple times in this fight, defended the takedown multiple times. Just really looked very, very good. I thought it was kind of funny, like the rubber guard that Primus was using was very good defensively, and he couldn't get anything offensively done. So Rabadinov just kind of withdrew from it, and then the fight went from bad to worse at that point for Primus. Like, very, very impressive by Rabadinov. So you could really pick any of them. Hizrev was also very impressive, but I thought in that main event, BC, that Brendan Loughnane, like throwing spinning attacks like from round 1 against the guy, yes, who can strike, but can obviously take you down and hold you down.
Yeah, and he did. Yeah,
and he does exactly what he did. So I was like, didn't
Would you say that looked a little like Bonner in the Anderson Silva fight, or more like Weidman in the Rockhold fight?
A little more Weidman in the Rockhold fight with consequences not quite as disastrous, but yeah, it didn't go well for him.
You could also offer Son in the second Anderson Silva fight in this conversation too. No, just unnecessary spinny shit that led to you losing the fight. Yeah,
even Shevchenko Grasso. Kind
Very
of
true.
Sort of, yeah.
Luke, I want you just identified a couple Russians who brought the absolute hammer. Speaking of hammer of the month, shout out to that old thing. But this Turk, Luke, Turkmenistan, Davletsov, dude, he did it in 58 seconds. Like, you got to shout him out here. He's in a lot better shape.
Hold on, though. So I went back and I watched this one. I was like, how did this happen? Because Impa had an incredible story last season. And then he gets to this one and he's kicking ass again. And we even said on Friday, like, man, can you imagine? The two guys we had sort of mentioned, Loughnane and Impa, two guys who could have won back-to-back tourneys and completely transformed their wealth. They're still going to do obviously really well. They already won the last one, but they didn't quite meet that threshold. But in the case of Impa, dude, if you actually watch that, he's kind of like lunging into Yagshimuradov and then stance switches and then goes square and stops. And that's when he gets hit. It's like, I cannot tell you how little that happens in boxing, where guys switch stances through range, stop when they're square, and get nailed. It almost never happens because those guys just don't make mistakes like that.
Is that kind of what Aljo did to lose the title?
I have to go back and look at the exact sequence. I don't remember. That was an open side counter. So it was more like a retreat, get him to extend, and then come over the top. He may have been square by that point. I have to go back and look. But in any case, I'm sure Impa knows that. I'm not saying anything he doesn't know. He's probably going to want that one back big time. I get it. I totally get it. But, you have to grade that performance based on a decision like that for what it is. And, that's not a rookie mistake, but it's an unforgivable one.
Well,
and,
I felt the same way. Godzi Rabadnov had such a hell of a tournament and a run to this belt and this $1 million. But I'm like, Brent Primus, man, to have that turnaround at 39 and make the run that we're talking about, and then just no head movement in this final matchup. And it seemed just inevitable that every punch was being thrown was catching him clean, that he was going to go down. But he had a heck of a run. But man, to see it go that way, I felt bad for him, Luke.
Well, I don't know if I felt bad, but that's why Rabadanov's run was great. But I have to kind of grade him a little bit on a curve for that reason. Nevertheless, though, some great wins for these guys. And as we mentioned, and like an all-Russian affair seemingly up and down this main card really speaks to the prowess of them. Now,
but do you want to just say, though, it's like Rabadanov has his biggest moment. I'm suddenly like, damn, I'd like to see him on whatever championship level they have. And then you're like, oh, wait, he is their champion now. They're, this year's champion. But this is the problem with the current setup, because then you're like, okay, well, who's the best light? Oh, Usman Nurmagomedov, who's sort of unnecessarily defending the Bellator title now in cards that are going to be put in Dubai. If they could fix that glitch, Luke, now we could be talking about, is Rabadnov good enough to beat Usman? Like, one champion, okay? One promotion here. Let's get that together. I hate that. Don't you hate that, or am I alone?
No. Speaking of that, let's get to topic number 2. So there has been a lot of criticism about the PFL, a lot of curiosity, and a lot of good things that have happened. It's a mix. But if there's one kind of common denominator, it's that people generally still aren't quite comfortable with the product, and there's a lot of demand for change. Even this 2024 PFL Championship came with elbows that were allowed in all of the fights, not just the title ones, and that was well received. And I think if you go back, BC, to the Dakota Ditcheva fight, the use of the elbows there were absolutely fantastic and played an important role and gave the fans something more to be excited about. But allowing elbows seems like a pretty small thing. You can do it, but it doesn't necessarily change the entire dynamic of what's happening. But what would? So for topic number 2, we're going to go and pick 3 things we would each do for the PFL to change in 2025 to make a better product. BC, I'd like to pitch it to you first. I know you've written a column similar to this kind of concept, which may have been a little bit bigger, but give me your top 3. What are the changes PFL should make in 2025 for a more dynamic product?
Okay, my number one, and then to be fair, my number one kind of extends into everything. And I wrote, I guess, the top 5 for CBS Sports heading into this card about things I think PFL should do or could do to try to do what they say they're doing, which is, we're not here to be number 2. We're here to compete with UFC for number 1. So what would be my biggest point of concern? The fact that they so aggressively build horizontally and don't seem to be putting their best strength, their best powers together and giving one big swing. How could you compete with the number 1 when you're trying so hard to establish 18 brands under your banner and all these different championships? We got a super fight championship. We got a regular season tournament championship. We got Bellator champions. I think there's a few other champions in there too, that it's kind of like when you watch Kitchen Nightmares or any of these celebrity chef shows. What's the first thing they do when they go into a struggling restaurant? They're like, oh, your menu has 400 items on it. We're going to bring that down to 9. Like, it's hard to be as aggressive as PFL is trying to be by diversifying and stretching out horizontally when it's at the stake of watering down your actual overall product. Like, it's cool that you can call yourself the Champions League of MMA, like it's the EPL or some other soccer comparison, but like, who cares? So I would say the biggest way to, like, I enjoyed that final card. I didn't watch it live, but I enjoyed that. I even like, by the way, I think swapping out Ken Flo and bringing in Dan Hardy, this trio is pretty damn good, pretty damn elite in terms of Randy Couture and Sean O'Connell there. Dan Hardy as an interviewer is kind of becoming my favorite for that job, although I think Rogan is still super elite in that specific role of the post-fight interview. But like, I liked a lot of this, but I want to continue to like it. And the way to do that is almost, in my opinion, in old school pro wrestling territory mindset or pride mindset of like storylining and everything playing together. Every match, every fight should lead and carry on toward the ultimate goal of the title. Well, the problem is we got too many titles and we got too many brands, and it's confusing, and it just waters down what PFL has, a puncher's chance of making a dent in what UFC does and the control they have. You can argue to how big that dent can ever become, but like, competition is great. It's fun. It fuels entertainment. Why wouldn't you take your entire roster, bring it together, one champion per division, simplify it, and say, this is what we got? I don't care how many pay-per-views you try. It's your financial risk, but give yourself a fighting chance. Like, it's cool that you signed Jake Paul, but what does that mean for the cage? It's cool you signed Amanda Serrano, but what does that mean for the MMA cage, right? And Ngannou's only fought once. But if you could take some of these guys on Friday that we did enjoy, and now it's like, oh, well, they haven't fought these Bellator guys over here. Guys, bring it together and give yourself one chance at swinging big and catching Strikeforce magic, or Bellator at certain points when they had certain strategies and they were making, especially on live cable TV, huge impacts in the sport. So, Luke, I know I just gave you like 18 answers in one, but it all goes back, in my opinion, to building upwards before you even consider buying all the properties on the Monopoly board. Like, nobody cares if you have 18 different sub promotions. We want to see your best fighters. We like your broadcast for the most part. Tell us stories, weave it together, and then let the best fight the best. And then you can maybe have an argument that you've got the best division in this, specific weight class and better than the UFC. But you're never going to be able to make that argument unless you take all the items in your cupboard that we care about and put it together and make some fun comfort meals here. All right. Like, stop overvaluing what you have. You don't have it yet. So, Luke, I'll throw it back to you. I hope you're going to get on them for selling some tickets live. But like, I think before you do anything to make changes, take your biggest swing with your best product. Put them all together. Enough of this separation, segregation bullshit.
Yeah, I mean, I can't agree more with, you got to build vertically and not horizontally. Having 1,000 brands. If you have 2 quarterbacks, you have none. If you have no one is asking for the Champions League of MMA, especially when the real Champions League involves the most popular sport on the most well-financed continent, between the world's most adored brands with the world's best players. Not a single part of that involves anything the PFL is doing. And so you have to be consistent and understand that from the get-go. I did pick 3 of them. Now, I could pick 300 of them because I genuinely think the product needs that much work. However, the 3 ones that I would pick, BC, would be as follows to move this segment forward. Number 1, I think they should keep the tournament, but like Bellator, 1 tournament at a time. 1 tournament at a time.
Yeah.
Pick a weight class, pick a moment in time, select and identify which weight class best suited for this, make it for $1 million, and run that thing through the course of a season. Or maybe you can run it for half and then another half. Like, you could run 2 a year at most. But 1 tournament at a time, first and foremost. Number 2, BC. This might be my most controversial one, so I'd be very curious to get some feedback from you on this. I do not understand what the point is of having a traveling circus if nobody shows up to see it wherever it goes. I don't get that. I don't get why you're in San Antonio one week and you're in Detroit the next and you're in San Diego the next one and you're in Florida for that one if you've got about 100 to 500 people in attendance at any given time. It seems to me a gigantic waste of resources and personnel and time. Now, is it the long-term goal to be able to go to San Antonio and Atlanta and Tampa? Of course it is. That can be a place long-term that you want to get to. But that is not even remotely where they are now. And it seems very foolish to spend money in that direction. What I think would be best is if they had some kind of, and hear me out on this, what I'm not going to call intimate venue, but mid-intimate venue. Somewhere around 1,000 to maybe 2,000 people seated at most in a home base Apex-like scenario. To me, BC, I really don't like that the UFC's in the Apex, in part because it facilitates having this bloated roster. And also, they actually can go on the road and sell tickets and are choosing not to. That is very, very different from what the PFL is doing, which is choosing not to save by having a more intimate home base and then going on the road and then having to pay per events, and even that doesn't really work. The two should be flipped, or at least there should be some differences in how they both currently approach it. It is the PFL that is in need of their own apex. And I don't mean like a barn warehouse where it's echoing and no one's showing up to that either. Some kind of a place, whether it's the guys are from DC, you could put it here, or New York, or someplace cheap, Florida. I don't care. I don't care where it is. Some place where you can reliably pack in a few hundred to maybe more people at a time, and you can get these shows in there. You can make it look how you want. You can save on these costs. And then, BC, you go on the road with cards that you're making the best available fights on. Before I go any further, what do you think of that?
You're nailing it. You're absolutely nailing it. It's inevitably it's just simplify. They're trying to do way too much. They're like when a rich, celebrity person buys a sports team and thinks they can run it, video game style or fantasy football style, and then you kind of realize. I mean, look, I'd add on to there, like, empower MMA people to make MMA decisions. That's my number two, right? Yeah. That's got it. Like, there's smart people in that company, Dan Hardy, Randy Couture, Ray Sefo. I mean, there's a bunch of experienced names who've been through different parts of this business and been through the wars. I just don't get the feeling that MMA decisions are being made all the time by MMA people. So, can I add one more on top of that, Luke?
Please.
You don't have to try to get somebody that meets Dana's personalities or quirks or style, but they've got to have a mouthpiece for the company. And I've by the way said this about PBC and boxing. I think that's the one miss they've had too, of being too silent and too behind the scenes. They've got to have a voice that in my opinion, the public, fight fans, and the media trust and find credible. And you can still protect the company and do the used car salesman stuff, but I think right now what we get from the PFL's faces, from Peter Murray, from Don Davis, is like, we've already won the battle talk. You know what I mean? Like, they're trying to show you, like, are you not intelligent enough to see how successful they are right now? And it's like, you don't want your fans and your critics, in my opinion, to question, like, do they have the right people running the show? Give us a mouthpiece that can be accessible, that can be the in-between, that can sell your vision better, and hopefully that can steer the ship toward simplifying and making more MMA decisions above making TV decisions or, marketing decisions. Like, at some point at the end of the day, what are you selling? If you're selling MMA, then make MMA the leading sell. Give us your best cut of the steak. And that involves everything I said before. Consolidate and come with, you know what I mean? You don't just talk like you carry a big stick. Let's go, load it up and swing it. Right, Luke?
Yes, I totally agree. May I give you my third and final one here a little bit? If someone asks you, what does Pepsi taste like? You can't just say not like Coke. It doesn't tell you much. And by the way, it also doesn't tell you anything great, because Coca-Cola tastes great. Its sort of brand is synonymous with great tasting Coca, or great tasting cola, great tasting soda, whatever you want to call it, pop, depending on where you're from. But saying that Pepsi is different than Coke, but what does that mean? It has no identity, and it has really no way to share like a concept. You have to do something that is very different from them. Now, of course, you are constrained by what you can do in the United States and a lot of other regulated territories, but here's what I mean. Rather, you cannot be Coca-Cola, so don't even try to be. Don't even try to be a Pepsi-Cola, which, again, is going to have a hard time identifying itself as a coherent brand and identity. They need to be Mountain Dew. They need to have a rule set that catches the eye. They need to have a rule set that sets itself apart and makes it a genuine alternative. If there is one thing that they can take from one championship, it is the notion that they are a genuine alternative to the UFC. Now, they have their own problems, and we've been over it a million times. It's not asking to borrow everything that they do, but they are different. They are meaningfully different. PFL, as it stands, is a place where also good fighters fight, but what is their brand identity? When the WEC was around before being acquired, it had an identity, and maybe some of that was a little bit of romanticism, somewhat in hindsight, but it was like your smaller guys. It's action-packed. It's highly technical. It was a great, different dynamic product. The UFC couldn't even compete with that. So you know what they did? They just fucking bought them. They just said, we're going to take those weight classes those guys have and just make them ours. That is doing something a little bit different. Now we're in a different age. We can't just go to different weight classes and as easily just come up with some kind of alternative. But if your program is just going to be, hey, we also do nice and shiny looking broadcast TV, it's just also UFC, but not with guys you've heard of, nothing good will ever happen here. There must be some kind of meaningful differentiator in how the product is made in order to set itself apart as an actual, not even so much competitor, alternative for UFC fans.
Yes. And look, that is why the mouthpiece, in my opinion, has to be filled and has to be filled first. And I don't know if it can be a Chael Sonnen. I don't know if he's the perfect fit for that. But like everything you just said, everything I said about you want to be able to trust the brand. Look, when promoters are at their best, they're not just great entertainment salesmen. They're like, I don't know, they're like leading a cause, and they can, you know, they can get you caught up in the cause. That's probably Dana's greatest strength back in the day when UFC was climbing. Like he made you want that for that company and by proxy the whole sport to succeed, to be the underdog, the little engine that could. I think PFL should embrace that side of the identity, because if you're swinging big at the big number one, that's basically designed how this game is played at the highest level, you are an underdog story. So I think you need that mouthpiece so they can set the narratives week to week, and they can be that storyteller in constantly getting people on your side and leaning into your chances of disrupting the market. But I don't think they have that right now. I mean, I don't think that you can put enough value in that, Luke. That's just my opinion. And it doesn't have to be somebody like Dana. Like Scott Coker's not the most charismatic guy, but I think we trusted him to a certain degree and respected the fight that he was taking on, and you know, wanted that to succeed. They got to get us waving the flag and saying, no, hold on, PFL is really good. Like, you don't have to be the ECW, but you have to have ECW level disruption. And they haven't figured out the right formula to disrupt yet.
BC, we didn't mention this, but one X factor for 2025 is absolutely going to be the Francis Ngannou sweepstakes.
Yes.
And how they play that. Let's show this on the screen. This was a tweet he sent over the weekend. John Jones still out here, I mean, on Thanksgiving, replying to people about being called a duck. And John was like, crazy how being called a duck pays better than most of you internet tough guys will make in a lifetime. Hey, in fairness, John, there was an OnlyFans model who revealed they made $4 million a month, $48 million in a year. They make more than him, and you know, I don't know how noble it is, but it doesn't really have to be.
Was this person showing anus, Luke? Like what levels are we talking?
I don't know. I've not paid for it, but whatever it is, it's working. I could say that. If you're making 50 mil a year showing butthole and feet, I mean, God bless you. So Francis replies to this and says, blessings make haters uncomfortable, but they can't change it. There's only one fight, the right fight, that will multiply your blessings. Hashtag Ngannou versus Jones. BC, I wonder what you make of this and what the PFL can and should do. Goltsov is not a bad fight. I don't hate that fight, but it's got not a lot of juice. What should they do?
If they're doing what I think they're doing, like a calculated move in the direction, which they should, even if you think it's a Hail Mary, the embrace of, hey, John, forget about the Aspinall fight. We know you don't want it, but you should want this one, the real legacy fight. And the only way it's going to happen, and we're not there yet in the build where we're talking this honestly, and maybe we never will. I'm trying to think of it too much in pro wrestling terms. But the real sell here is that this fight has the potential to be so special and such a once in a lifetime. If you want to make a comparison to, you know, landmark Rumble in the Jungle type fights in boxing, has MMA had that yet? Well, you had Fedor versus Crow Cop, which had like a, you know, pro wrestling feel and sort of like the regalness of it and the build and the, but we don't get that too often. So this is the right move if this is Francis and PFL brass teaming up and going like, we've got to change the narrative and we've got to aggressively put out there that this fight is possible. It could be made. It just comes down. I mean, I think they should be, this is where I think taking on, again, almost a pro wrestling angle of heel work here publicly, of trying to goad them into it. Put it out there. Say to the media, the only person holding this super fight of super fights up from happening is Dana White. Because Luke, I wonder if we're learning what we're starting, you know, from reading the John S. Nashes and the MMA draws, and we're starting to really understand for the first time for some of us, like the real business of this business. then like I wonder if it's best for business, TKO business, that UFC did entertain some type of Jones and Ngannou crossover since they're on the same network. Like it's not, I think this is the right move if this is everybody saying, like, hold on, we got one chance at this. We know that John doesn't even want that super fight that they're trying to build. Why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you go to the level of embarrassing yourself even to try to put that out there and get people talking about it? So I support this, Luke. You think I'm crazy?
I don't think you're crazy, but there was one idea that was poo-pooed, and let me be clear, I don't like it. I'm not going to tell you this because I like it. I'm saying if we're trying to save PFL's fortunes, which is a different conversation, what would we do? BC, if it were me and I was at the PFL, and I know people would complain, but it wouldn't matter, I would try and book a changed rules bout, because I'm not sure what you would call it, to have striking only, but with like MMA sensibility between Deontay Wilder and Francis in the PFL smart cage.
Yes.
Right. I would not let that fight take place in boxing if I had any way to stop it.
Because you might be able to convince. Hold on, you might be able to convince Jake if it's a success to Jake to try something stupid like that under your
100%. 100%. And again, would the fight be stupid? Almost certainly. Has Deontay Wilder been shot for a while now? No, like without question. I'm not telling you I would like it. What I'm telling you is if you're trying to book something on curiosity, at least exploring ideas like that is going to be much better for them because you're locked out of the monopoly with UFC. And Goltsov is, as we said, dude, that was how many times do you see a heavyweight win from their guard these days? I mean, it's so incredibly rare. And he choked the guy out completely in Popov. Like, did a great job. He's a great fighter. I have a ton of respect for him, but there's not a lot of juice to it because of Colo. Those goddamn tournaments don't do a lot for a lot of these guys in terms of changing how the public perceives them or even making them recognized more broadly. Something like this gets you a little bit closer, even though it's gimmicky and fucking crazy as hell. Honestly, what is the UFC doing? You can't do that. Try something a little bit different and then do more of that.
If they don't open up the rosters, in my opinion, like first thing 2025, and maybe just come out, and I think I guess to do that, you probably have to change your format, which I still think is one of the biggest things they should do. We've talked about it. You agree. Drop the regular season and playoff thing. It's too grueling. So once you get them to that point, I think we're going to find out if they're truly serious when this new year starts, because right now they've got a split roster, people in almost separate divisions or federations, but there's no interleague play, or I guess outside of their one pay-per-view where they tried that, and then the actual second pay-per-view to open the year, which was probably the high points of the year for PFL. The PFL versus Bellator pay-per-view in February and the October Ngannou one. And to some degree, both were successes, at least critically. I don't know about, commercially, but well, the Ngannou one seemed to definitely be commercially. But like they gotta, I don't know, man. They really got to lean in that idea. Like you've got to start building up to what the possibility of the big breakthrough fights can be. You've got to really just, if they start this year separating the rosters, who else are like, what's been the biggest problem with the Bellator fighters in PFL so far? Outside of like, what app are they on and why can't I find it? It's really been like, oh, they're just rematching fights we've already seen them fight in Bellator. Well, then you mirror that with the problem already of the PFL tournament format. It's rematches constantly all the time, only it's largely rematches of like some second and third rate fighters, to be very fair, right? So you have more need than ever to cross-pollinate, merge the rosters together and give us fresh matchups. If they open the new year without that, and they're just leaning on, well, if we can get one big pay-per-view or something, then the ship's going to sink. But they gotta light the match. That's what I'm saying. Like every time they get a spark, they act like they've won already, and this is proof of concept. They got a long way to go, but I think, in my opinion, if they open the new year with that same structural format, which is the biggest thing holding them back, then I'm gonna know what direction they're headed, Luke.
Just remember, and BC, I think you know the answer to this. Who is the most popular fighter in the history of Bellator? Kimbo Slice. Kimbo versus Ken Shamrock and Kimbo versus Dada. Again, you can only do these in limited doses. It cannot be the core of your product, otherwise it will fail as well. You cannot go down that path. But never forget that the most popular fighter in the history of Bellator, by a considerable margin, is Kimbo freaking Slice. That is why he got used, and it was very, very helpful for them, at least at that time, in trying to stand out from the crowd. PFL needs not to go down a path where that's what they do, but where they can sprinkle that in, I think would be, among other changes, well received. BC, speaking of well received, every time I wear my True Classic gear, whether it's my shirt, whether it's my joggers, whether it's you name it.
Yeah, talk about it.
I get compliments. Hell, you started the show talking about it. My wife freaking loves it. The fit, you know what I mean? I buy a lot of t-shirts. I buy a lot of t-shirts from a lot of places. The fit doesn't always work. I don't know how you feel, but the fit for True Classic for me is like a glove.
It's a game changer. If you've been working out, it only amplifies the work you've been doing. And Luke, sometimes if you're in between or you're not in your best form, they do a lot to make the most of what you're bringing to the table. And I mean that. It can be hard to be a middle-aged dad and sometimes fall in and out of the priority of the things that we know we need to do. But this is like the right fit at the right time, high quality products at an affordable price. Like it's just more sprinkling on top of the goodness when you find that out. But first and foremost, even separate from the price, it's got to fit. There's something about the magic of True Classic that they've figured out scientifically where it just fits and it fits right. And Luke, that peace of mind, tell me if I'm wrong, that almost dictates everything when it comes to fashion and the success of trying to pull something off.
Especially as you get older, as you indicated. And also, it's just a good deal with a reliable company. 100% perfect fit guarantee with easy returns. It's trusted by 4 million customers and 200,000 plus online reviews. You can get jeans, hoodies, t-shirts in packs of 3, 6, 9, you name it. They've got tons of stuff. Fall has already passed, but upcoming for winter. So here's what you guys need to do. You got to go to trueclassic.com/combat. That's, of course, Combat with a K. The holidays are here, and True Classic's ultra comfortable, perfect fitting essentials make for the perfect gift for you and the men in your life, BC. So if you're ready to upgrade your closet, shop now and unlock big savings during their huge holiday sale. Just go to trueclassic.com/combat to save. Tell them one more time, BC, where they got to go.
They got to go to trueclassic.com/combat, of course, with a K, to save. And look, when I walk in with True Classic on, I get a different reaction from my wife, Luke. That's just that's the truth at the end of the day. So it's up to you guys. It's up to you. All right.
All right. Yeah. Please support our show. Tell them we sent you. End the year with a holiday cheer thanks to True Classic. trueclassic.com/combat. BC, with that in mind, let's move the show along to topic number 3 if we can. And of course, you know what the deal is. UFC 310 is this weekend. It's the last pay-per-view of the year for the Ultimate Fighting Championship. Now, there's a lot of consternation because Belal Muhammad is not going to be defending his title against Rakhmonov. So there is, a change to it fell out, and now Kaya Sakura is going to be challenging Alexandre Pantoja for the flyweight title in the main event. But BC, if you look up and down this card, like any card, but especially for pay-per-views, there are a couple of gems, sometimes hidden, sometimes hiding in plain sight. Tell me in your mind, I know we're going to do a big preview on Friday, but right now,
big one.
Most underappreciated storyline heading into the last pay-per-view of the year for the UFC.
Dude, I think it's not. I think it fits all the categories. I think it's the biggest, most important one entering this card, and I didn't think it's the one we'd be having because when this card as originally booked, Shavkat Rakhmonov was the story. Cashing in his money in the bank and showing us on the title level how great he can be and whether the destruction he left behind was at that level, but now let's see on the championship level, or, oh no, he's that dude. And now it's flipped, in my opinion, completely with the way things went with Belal getting hurt. And now it's not a title fight, but it is a firm #1 contender, big 5-round opportunity. It's Ian Gary. It's not just how big are his balls. We found out when he signed up for this and he accepted it. It's not just that, like, almost, babyface turn that he's been on in the public eye ever since all the negativity about his wife and all that stuff with Colby Covington. I mean, he's been through some dark turns in the social age for sure, but his reputation has turned in the process. And I really think for me, it's about, okay, that's as tough as a step-up fight as you can make in any division for somebody at the point of where Ian Gary is in his career, where on paper, it looks great, and for the most part, I do believe in him. Like, I take more positives than negatives at each of his tough step-ups that he's been on before this, but he's yet to really have that big showcase perfection walk through destruction fight where we're like, damn, he's arrived. He's Luke from, chapter 6, Return of the Jedi. Like, he's dressed in black and he's here to kick some ass. He hasn't hit that moment yet. And if he is for real, he's going to hit that moment against the boss at the end of the video game. So yeah, how many cliches can I fit in one long rant? Count for yourself. But Luke, tell me I'm not alone in really circling that. Look, I don't know. I don't know if Ian Machado Gary is the real, but dude, buckle up, get me some popcorn, because we're about to find out. And it just so happens that he's going up against the largest sword of your Bonaire collection, Luke, and that is Shavkat Rakhmonov.
Been on the Shavkat Rakhmonov boner train since day one, my friend. Don't think you know I have to. You can't even call me a latecomer to that one.
No.
I certainly share all of your enthusiasm. I got to tell you, dude, let me ask you this. Okay, it's different because I think, let me double check this. Is that fight, how many rounds is that fight?
5.
So still five, but there's no title on the line. Do you forget about the title being involved, just fight. Do you like Rakhmonov Muhammad better or Rakhmonov Gary better?
Rakhmonov Gary. There's more to learn. There's more and things I want to really see. I mean, look, they're both great fights, and this is nothing against Bilal. Like, I think it's going to play out perfectly because Shavkat should beat Machado Gary. The odds will tell you that. We know that. The entertainment value, as I just mentioned, is finding out how great Gary can be. But I think it still leads back there, Luke, and I think we're going to see a very interesting fight if we do get to Shavkat versus Bilal, which I think we will.
I love this contest, and I got to tell you, dude, just think about this for a second. I favor Rakhmonov to win. I don't think that. I'm sure the odds do. Long Island Luke, what are the odds roughly right now for Rakhmonov heading into this Gary fight?
It's like minus 320 Rakhmonov, like plus 275-ish Ian Gary.
That's perfect.
How do you feel about that value?
I'm not taking Ian Gary. That's how I feel.
So this is my point, BC. I think Rakhmonov probably will win, right? Can you imagine the meltdown that will happen if Gary finds a way to win? And not just that, like wins somehow impressively. Yes. He is going to melt down all of incels, like incel MMA. Like, they will lose their fucking mind over this.
There will be a Dragon Ball Z explosion of what do you call that stuff, Luke? Anime. Semen. All over. There'd be there's anime all over my laptop, Luke. Okay, that's what I'm saying, dude. Seriously, those are the breakthrough moments. Like, it's the same thing, by the way. It appears we'll probably talk about it. We're probably getting this Floyd Schofield, Kid Austin, like extreme step up against Shakur Stevenson. And for all the people that are saying, that fight's too early or it's reckless or whatever, you do want to find out, Luke. And there's only one way to find out, right? At the highest freaking level with the brightest lights. These are the gladiators, Luke. That's why we love and respect them. But yeah, this would be one of those holy shit, remember, like, never forget the way we felt heading in type of things, where we were assured that one guy was the absolute hammer, the absolute realist. I mean, it's possible, Luke, but damn, you got to favor Shavkat, and you got to favor him comfortably from what we know right now.
For what we know, I favor Shavkat. I just think I would love it if Shavkat won, because I think rewarding a guy who gave up a title fight just to stay active is actually pretty important that you do that. Also, he's, undefeated and finishes everybody. Like, I want to see that continue just because I think it'd be awesome. On the other hand, if Gary somehow wins, however unlikely we might perceive it, it will destroy the lives of the worst people you know. And so therefore it's almost more desirable to get that.
But dude, what if he just head kicked him in round 2 and knocked Shavkat out with the kind of shot that was just perfect and anyone would have gotten hit with it?
Yeah.
Which is possible. Like, we hate stars being forced upon us until we've proven and seen how great they actually are. It's sort of that tension that's always bickering against one another. That's why when you get those moments, the poster right here that you can't see, Aldo versus McGregor, it's why those moments end up framed on your wall, because that's the ultimate, like, I know Conor still had doubters after that, right? But that's the ultimate, like, F you, here's my ticket. I belong here. You know what I'm saying? Like, we love when that transaction happens through the cage or through the boxing ring rather than through social media or through a promoter playing you up.
I'm not even thinking about that. I'm just telling you it's 9/11 for incels if Ian Gary wins. It's straight up September 11th for them. Would be fucking hilarious.
Yeah.
All right, but that is not my pick, although it's a great pick. It's not my pick. My pick is a little bit different.
Oh, bring it, Luke.
I have to go with Aljamain Sterling versus Movsar Evloev sitting on the fucking preliminary card. We have a clip of Aljamain Sterling kind of talking about where he's at in the lead up to this fight. Long on, Luke. Let's play it.
I wasn't really excited about the fight in the very, very beginning because no one knows who the guy is. I know who he is. I know he's very good, but it's hard to get excited about something when you go from fighting well-known guys like Piotr Jan, Corey Sandhagen, TJ Dillashaw, Henry Cejudo. Like, those are big names. Even O'Malley has a much bigger name here in the States even before he even fought for a belt. You know, he's one of the more popular guys in the division back then. So with that said, it was a little bit harder for me to get excited about the matchup, which is why I called for Brian Ortega, even Diego Lopez, people that the world, not just that one side of the world, everybody knows who these guys are. That's what gets you out of bed, gets you motivated to want to train and really put a stamp on the performance, you know? So I think some people started to come around after there was some trash talk back and forth, and I think that's given me a little bit more motivation to want to take the fight. And I was the only one who called him out, you know. A lot of these guys, they don't want to fight Movsar. And I was like, all right, if no one else wants to fight him, I'll go out there and I'll be the hitman. And I'll take care of this mission and go out there, take him out, and then I'll fight for the belt next.
So I love this fight, and I agree with almost everything he's saying there. Evloev sitting at 5, Sterling sitting at 9. So first of all, just practically what could he win? A space inside the top 5. But when you think about that, you've got Volk there. Max probably was not going to take that, so he's gone. Diego's sitting there waiting for one. Yair is then above him. Like, you in other words, there are a couple of things that have to get resolved at the top, but at that point, you are not far from a title shot. Dude, it is unbelievable. You're talking about in Aljamain Sterling, a bantamweight champion who won 3 times, and it's not his fault. The Dillashaw one should never have happened, but it does count. A good champion for as long as it lasted in a very difficult division. I want to point that out. He was on his way to losing the first Jan fight, and then in the second fight left no doubt about it, right? Took the Sean O'Malley fight on short notice, and it didn't go well for him. But in general has been, I mean, the win over Cejudo was tight as well, but, really shows up when he needed to, has had a very good career. And he's taken on a guy that nobody else wants to fight for. Not a title shot, but not far from one at that point. They put a fucking former champion doing all of this on the prelims. The disrespect is intense and palpable and simply undeniable at this point. And yet, BC, if he wins this one, I don't see why he's not a tricky matchup for a guy like Ilia Topuria. I don't see how that's something you could look the other way. Am I saying he beats Ilia? I mean, it's a different conversation. But a guy who was a former champion, who is now fully the right size at the weight class he's in now, 145, who's got extraordinary backpacking ability and knows what it takes to win at the highest level. Dude, that's a very, very difficult challenge for a guy like Ilia, as well-rounded as he might be. Holy shit, I cannot believe that they're making Sterling I can believe that they're making him go up the queue again. I get that, but like they're making him go up the visibility queue again. Unbelievable to me that they're doing it, but here we are, and I can't wait to see how this one unfolds.
Yeah, I mean, this is almost like the third most important fight of the night. You know what I mean? In terms of stakes for its division and in our interest. Luke, why? And it's happened before. There's champions that, or fighters that get to the championship level where they just catch the ire of the promotion once and they're just not the golden boys, not the chosen ones. They sort of have to do the dirty work. But like Aljo seems to always get dicked down in some form. And I know sometimes he plays into it, like where, posing with the belt after winning by DQ, people then had like all these, critical things to run with. See, he's rubbing it in our face. But like, I always felt people were too harsh to begin with. Is it just that they feel like his fights are boring, which I don't see how you could say that if you appreciate, elite MMA and, he just controlled Kattar and totally dominated him. I don't know, Luke. Why does he constantly get like the Tyron Woodley treatment? Another fighter who seems to have to go like the hard way. It's like, you're right. If he gets a big win here, he might be a sneaky, perfect B-side for a title fight in a fight that is going to be legit, absolutely legit. If he fought Topuria, that'd be a very interesting matchup. But he's got to do the dirty work for the division to have a chance at getting it. And I don't, why? Luke, why? Explain to me why this guy gets dicked down like this.
I have a feeling over the years. I mean, I haven't talked to anybody who is a UFC matchmaker since 2022, something like that. So it's been some time, but and they've never told me this, but I get the feeling that there are certain guys that they feel don't have the juice and are never gonna. And that isn't necessarily people who can't win titles, although it's more commonly people who can't win titles, but it can be them too. And they just don't believe in him for whatever reason as some kind of an entity that they want to get behind. I bet if you pinned him down, they would be like, hey, we're giving him a fight that is still on a big card. It will be on free TV. They can hype it up as much as they want. People are going to be happier on the pay-per-view card because there's not, a close wrestling contest. And in the end, if he wins, they'll reward it with a top 5 guy. Maybe he fights Diego Lopez. Maybe he fights, who knows? Some Yair Rodriguez, which would be, by the way, those are awesome fights too. They would find a way around it. But there can simply be that no denial that they don't view. They have to acknowledge where he is and they have to respect it. And I think that on some basic level they do, but they don't like it. They don't want him there. And they don't believe that he's a guy that they want to get behind. And I think this is the central tension that you're seeing. So that's why this fight's so exciting, BC. Not because of the matchup per se, although it could be, but not necessarily, and maybe even it won't be. It's exciting because they can force the UFC's hand with something like this. And that is actually a little bit, to me, a more of an interesting kind of concept that he's wrestling with here.
Yeah, no doubt. Luke, are you impressed at all that my twice insertion of casually injecting you with dick down as if it's a regular MMA term, and you're just like,
I laughed. I laughed.
Right,
you didn't see me laughing?
Yeah, I mean, that's a huge win right there. Let's make that part of the MMA lexicon, please.
Let's let BC get dick down again. Now we're gonna make red hats and say that.
It wasn't pointing this way, like the shaft was in the other direction. There you go.
All right, okay. Very good. With that in mind, BC. Well, again, full 310 preview coming this Friday. Let's move to topic number 4. And I gotta say, BC, I have to tell you, I was wrong about something. I think it was last Monday, maybe not last Monday, maybe I think it was last Friday's show, where I told you, storyline. Yes, sometimes it can do something for me, but in general, I don't really need it. And that is still generally true. Most storyline in the fight game doesn't do much for me. It doesn't move me. It doesn't do a whole lot. But, for a big fight, when there's a big rivalry, you love it. And then there could be the occasional, funny kind of promotion. There's another one I want to introduce into the ways in which I think, what do you want to say? Promotion can really add a lot. All right? Your mileage may vary. It's topic number 4. It's Jamahal Hill. Jamahal Hill went on a goddamn, what do you want to call it, BC? Social media rampage. Not just social media. He was on YouTube, which I guess is social media, but you get the idea. Either responding to people, calling out people, responding to call outs of other people, and just spraying the block the entire time, BC. Now, BC, a lot of people get really annoyed by this. But before we get to the actual substance of what he was replying to me, Poatan at the top of the light heavyweight division, unmitigated success, huge 2024. Everybody loves him. Nothing bad to say about him. But as I've argued, outside of the Ankalaev fight, there's not a whole lot to get excited about. Jamahal Hill is maybe the only guy outside of just what Poatan brings to this division who is making people want to see him fight. Now, they might be wanting to see him get viciously KO'd, but they're invested. Dude, he is rolling grenades into these rooms. He's farting on elevators and then walking out. And I got to tell you, I kind of like it. I kind of like it a little bit.
I don't discount that he's got to be in on it and that there is a lane to do just the extreme heel, and he's running with it because it feels like he's just pulling the pin off of the grenade and putting it between his legs and waiting to see what happens. He's donking out here, but it is bringing a lot of attention. The only thing I never liked about it is it's making him to some degree unlikable when I think as a fighter, he's extremely likable. And I think he has the chance still to be in some very big pay-per-view main event fights because he's got balls, he's, skilled and very exciting and goes for it. Regardless of, having some swing and misses at the highest level. But that's where this division is right now. It's a bunch of gunslingers and one guy with a bigger gun than everybody else. But you know what? It does add something in the long run. It is a little, it's cheap heat though, Luke, right? You know what I mean? Like it can get cringy, it can get abrasive, but it's going to lead to a fight. And dude, you can't tell me you're not fired up to see him and Yuri. Is that the co-main of the proposed January 18th Los Angeles card at the new arena?
And this is my point. If he wasn't talking shit, I'd be moderately interested in it. But now it's not just that like, oh, you want to see one guy win versus the other. It's more like, dude, he's raised the stakes on what these even mean, right? It's not just
John Jones to mention him, Luke. That's not nothing.
It's not nothing. Let's go through what he actually said. Let's autopsy this just a little bit. First, let's go after what Hill said. Actually, let's go in order. He responded, Jamahal Hill, to Michael Bisping, and this was on Twitter. Jamahal Hill first at Bisping, calling me a sore loser and talking about as men on losing is the craziest shit to me ever. Bro, you've been crying and salty about Dan Henderson for 20 years and Vitor Belfort for 15. You would think spending half your career losing, you would know how to. Okay. It's a little much, but not
there's
bad.
Some heat. Yeah, there's some heat there. I like that. Yeah.
All right. To which Bisping replied, did you watch what I said or did you read some shitty headline? If it's a headline, I'll accept your apology. I said you were a bit of a sore loser because you're a true competitor, and then went on to explain how if that energy is channeled correctly, it can be truly beneficial to fighters' mindset. I was being nice, not talking shit. Didn't have you down, as the easily offended type. Really? I mean, all fighters are the easily offended type. All the best with your camp. This one thing where it's like I was kind of couching an insult in this broader explanation of niceness. Like you can't people try to do this with fighters, and I've done it too, where it's like I was actually saying something nice. They don't care. They don't care. They don't give a shit. I have to tell you, I kind of love the pow of this one a little bit. That was actually all right. Then, hold on. He went after, as you mentioned, UFC 311 opponent, Yuri Prochazka. Let's take a look at that.
He says, don't talk about his fight IQ or his fights because my last performance, I showed nothing. Bro, are you kidding me? Are you kidding me? So we had the same opponent last fight, right? You can say whatever, try to go with the wave. Like that seemed to be the thing now because I get a lot of hate within the community and all of that. A lot of y'all want to try to jock on that. But I'm really don't care and I'm really going to come at you, right? Your last performance, you got dominated. Dominated and knocked out. Completely shut down, completely exposed, right? And then got done bad, bro. You did bad. I got caught. You got dominated. It's a huge difference. You feel what I'm saying? My man's literally had your ponytail leaning to the left. I hope you wear that. I hope you wear that same ponytail in LA so I can lean that motherfucker to the left right back for you. You know what I'm saying? Like this is this is insane. We talking about a dude who is getting his ass whooped in every fight that you've been in. And because you are, you know what I mean? You can take some shots and people get tired and they make low IQ moves. The only reason why you became champ is because Glover made a low IQ move in a moment.
Okay, BC. I'm here for it.
There is an endearing side to him like playing the villain role to some degree. The problem I think is that it always goes so quickly too far into like delusion, and that's where I feel like he has to be in on the joke. I kind of wish he would stop the whole, material that he builds behind protecting the way that he lost to Poatan and trying to frame it as the referee or Pereira himself, but deceiving him.
He seems to I don't agree with all of his assessments there. I do agree that Yuri wins a lot because he endures a lot of abuse and then survives and then does well. which won't last. Like that eventually will go away. You do have to win on skills. I actually fully agree with that. However,
it's rooted in truth. That's the key to his
yes,
him playing
but
the character.
Like the thing
so
where
well.
him like being like, I got caught versus you got dominated. I understand what he's saying. He's saying I didn't get fully audited in that way. I got hit with a big punch in a fight that was like, you know, relatively even until it just wasn't. I understand what he means by that, but at the same time, he got finished quicker.
I just think he's got to drop that bit about the loss to Pereira, and people would spin around and be like, you know what? This guy's kind of a badass, and sometimes he does land some of these trash talking, and you know he's going to clap back. So, like, you're always, like, waiting to see what's going to happen if you get caught up into that. Luke, sometimes I get caught up into that noise, all right? This guy could be a player in that scene. You just got to drop that bit, you know?
Well, he also responded to Pereira responding to him. Let's take a look at that if we can. So Poatan was out there being like, calm down, my son, pass this test and dad will give you a second chance. And then Jamahal quote tweeted it and replied, beat it. Funny how you rushed little ass Roundtree and dumbass Yuri like you were the man, but waited until the refs got in the way to swing at me. You will see me again at 100% soon. And we both know the fear that was in your heart. Okay, I don't believe any of that, but it doesn't matter. He is making it appointment fucking viewing the next time he goes out there, because if he wins, you just know the trash talk is going to go to the next fucking level.
Yeah, dude, this is like 90s pro wrestling heel 101, what he's actually pulling off here.
Okay.
This is Chael Sonnen's bit. He's just reworked
it.
Yeah,
but
right?
I don't, do you think he's doing a bit, or is he just being a certain like side of himself?
I think he's doing the bit so well that we can't figure it out. So
Okay.
I think he's winning either way, right? Because no matter what it is, he's leaning into it. And guess what? It's keeping him in the conversation of huge fights. Dude, again, John Jones saying his name is like, did you think about that he was in that category? But at the same time, would you hate to see that fight if it ever did materialize? No. So maybe he has found a way to really make this gimmick work.
I can't wait. I am now much more excited about this than I otherwise would have been.
Someone Yuri's could be one knockout away from just it all falling apart, because you can only take so much.
Yeah, dude, when it falls apart for him, it's going to fall apart disastrously and then all at once. Like his chin is going to go and then it's curtains for him. Like that's it. I'm not saying it's this fight. I don't know if it's this fight. It could maybe not even next year. I don't know, but it eventually will get cracked and then Humpty Dumpty will not be put back together again. Yeah. All right, BC, let's quickly, if we can, go to topic number 5 for a bit of a boxing roundup. Tomorrow is the presser announcement for Tank Davis versus Lamont Roach. There's a lot to get to there. I want to talk about that plus a few other things. Let's start with Davis and Roach. BC, as we indicated, it was supposed to be December, I think, 16th in the Toyota Center in Houston. It got
14th.
moved to, say again?
14th,
I apologize. 14th at the Toyota Center in Houston. It got moved to March 1st at the Barclays Center in Brooklyn, New York. BC, I see a lot of consternation online about this fight. I have a talk with Lamont Roach coming out tomorrow, but is moving it to Brooklyn any kind of meaningful improvement?
It in reality, it probably shouldn't be, but I think it's for whatever reason, it's done a ton to sort of change the perception. Look, this was never a bad fight, right? Lamont Roach Jr. is absolutely legit at 130 pounds, and this is, a step-up fight. He's unbeaten. Like, there's an amateur background and a rivalry. This is more interesting than, I think, kind of rushing it and sending it out to Houston, because I think that was Tank's preference, than it was if it would have happened. Because there were still some people going, and maybe rightfully to some degree, saying like, why is Tank kind of doing the Hector Garcia bit again? There's so many big names at 35 and 40 that we, all love to see Tank get a chance to fight. But time and shifting it to a place. I mean, look, when there's big fights in Brooklyn, it's a different level of energy and magic in the air. So I just think for whatever reason, that fight just got an injection. And now I'm seeing a lot more positivity and people excited for the actual matchup, which of itself is going to be very interesting, even if it didn't have that big commercial knockout punch of what we're kind of waiting for Tank to do. When he fought Ryan, it was huge. We want to see him do that again, whether it's, any one of Shakur, any of those guys. Maybe this leads to it anyway, but I don't know. Do you feel the change in the air? People, dude, this is going to be this would be a great night to be in the arena for this. There's going to be, it's going to be wild, Luke. It's going to be big.
You know what's kind of funny? You've got DC versus Baltimore. It's not in DC and it's not in Baltimore, but it's in New York, which is a short drive for everybody. Barclays has been a great home for boxing generally. It's not a home game, BC, but it feels pretty close to one.
Yes.
It feels kind of like one. And so I feel like you're going to get a good I can't quite put my finger on it either, other than to say it's not a big trip for the folks from this neck of the woods to go up there, and then that area is already good for boxing. I feel like the crowd might be electric. I didn't know what you were going to get in Houston, to be quite honest with you. I mean, tank draws wherever, so, you know, it doesn't necessarily
Texas has great fight fans where the fight fans will show up. You know what I mean? That wasn't going to be an issue, I don't think.
Yeah, but I mean, like, what kinds? Like, I just feel like, I don't know, there's something that Barclays in Brooklyn gives it a little bit of an edge.
Yes.
And I don't know how much that will matter in the end, but I like it better this way, although the delay is not so great. BC, the bigger story here from boxing is less this one. Again, the presser will be tomorrow. It's about Jaron Ennis and Vergil Ortiz. So Jaron Ennis and Vergil Ortiz were thought to be negotiating a fight for the February 22nd card in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia for 154 pounds. And then Vergil Ortiz gets out there and said, hey, I tried. It fell apart. It's not my fault. And then Boots gets out there and says, we actually put the Boots note up if we can, Long Island Luke, the one that says Boots responds. He goes, I've seen the rumors on social media just like y'all did as far as the fight with me and Vergil. I was unaware that alleged negotiations were being made on my end from here on out. If it didn't come from me and me only, don't believe it, and I will address if I'm staying at 47 or moving up to 54 at a later date. But here's the problem, BC, is that they had declared right after the last fight against Chukadzan that they wanted to go to 54. They're, well, how about this? Play the video of Bozy Ennis. This is the dad of Boots Ennis. Play that.
Oscar De La Hoya has come out on social media today and suggested a fight between Jaron and Vergil Ortiz Jr. in a Matchroom versus Golden Boy 5 versus 5 event. A fight that you'd be interested in, a fight with Vergil Ortiz up at 154?
They already asked about that, and they said they turned it down.
As in Golden Boy turned it down?
I don't know if it was Golden Boy, but I don't know who it was. They said they turned it down. We'll fight him in a heartbeat.
But when did that happen, if you don't mind me asking?
Huh?
When did that happen? When did that occur?
That a few days ago.
So there you have it. BC, his dad was unequivocal about it. They seemed to be ready to go with it. It was rumored, and then what was reported happened is that when the contract was sent over to Vergil Ortiz, all of a sudden it was at 147, a weight class that Ortiz can no longer make weight safely.
And they know, and he hasn't made that in 2 years, dude.
Here's the question. Is Boots Ennis ducking?
Yeah, I think once these facts came out, I think Dan Rayfield had a lot of reporting in this area on Fight Freaks Unite about exactly what you're talking about, that it was sent out as a 147-pound title bout, and it made it look, it makes it look like he doesn't want the fight, or he changed his mind, or whatever is the case. I know in that post-fight interview after the Chukadzin rematch, he did seem to lean heavily to like he was going to 154, even mentioning that it's, tough physically to keep making 147, but he also did leave the door open that he might want to unify if he can get the champions in the ring for a big fight at 47. We all didn't think that was the right move, but it's on him. Ultimately, it's just, why would this fight go this deep into negotiation and be paraded publicly if it, from Boots's case, no one even told him? Like, that doesn't make any sense. It was all over social media and it was everywhere. So yeah, it makes Team Boots look bad. I think it comes down to like, what was the real reasoning here? Did they just make the decision that for now staying at 47 is the path they want to go? Then come out and say that, basically, is what I'm saying. And don't let this drag your name through the mud the way it has, because this is a bad look.
And then Xander Zayas, you can put up the tweet. He's a young guy, up and coming. He wants the smoke. They gave me an hour to say yes. I said yes in 1 minute. Responding to Vergil Ortiz being like, hey, guys, I tried. It takes two to tango. No one wants to do it. BC, I like the moxie on Xander Zayas. And thank you, Long Island Luke. I don't want him to take this fight, though. I would rather him do it patiently and under the right circumstances.
I mean, look, we're not used to this in boxing. This is Riyadh's in effect happening. But sometimes, like the Jared Anderson, Martin Bacoli heavyweight fight, sometimes these guys get dropped into the truth chamber, and it's riveting to see. And there will be those questions afterwards if these fights are taken too quickly. And again, Kid Austin, Floyd Schofield, it looks like him and Shakur is going to be on this loaded February 22nd card that they're trying to figure out the Vergil Ortiz situation for right now. And this card's going to be loaded, or so we hope, because a couple times what's happening in Riyadh season is you'll hear all these rumors, and it feels like Turkey and company are leaning into those rumors, and then the card you actually get is missing, a couple fights or things change. However, the message ends up getting delivered, truncated like that. This has the potential to be a monster pay-per-view and a big deal. I wouldn't worry so much from Ortiz's standpoint because Turkey's going to make sure they get the next best opponent because it seems like Vergil is a fighter he's really backing. And when you got that Turkey stamp, you're going to get the big push, ready or not. Hey, Ortiz was ready against Bochuk, and that was an instant classic. If they can make this fight, though, Luke, that I don't know, man. I mean, who would you most want to see Vergil against? I'd love to see him against Crawford, by the way. I don't know if they can make this quickly with this short turnaround, but there's some things that would be very fun to see.
I mean, I would have said Tim Tszyu, but
there you go. Yeah.
Yeah, that whole shit got fucked up. I mean, there's nothing else to say. Last bit on this, BC.
Wait, you think it's just bad PR from Boots? Really? It's just bad. It's just like not controlling the narrative.
Here's what I don't get from Boots. It's like you can't hint about what direction you're going. Your father get out there and say it. And then you get an offer for it with, by the way, probably the payday of his life, considering it's Saudi Arabia, right?
I heard $6 million.
Okay, pretty decent amount. $6 million is probably more than he's made for any other fight up to this point, and by multiples, I'm guessing. And you're saying no to it at a point in time when, like, this is exactly like this deal is not going to get better. Also, I would favor him to win if he fought up to potential. Boots is having a rough go of it. The end of his PBC run and the beginning of his Matchroom run, it's not like it's gone bad, but it hasn't gone according to plan. And then
he never signed with PBC, and I wonder if, in hindsight, that's what hurt him.
Maybe. I mean, when I say PBC, he was fighting on PBC cards with an independent promoter, but you know what I mean.
Right, but he had the Showtime exclusive deal.
Yeah. He was on PBC cards. I mean, I guess is the best way to put that. But it has gone poorly for him relative to expectations, and it's hard to not see. Not a great thing. Last thing on this. Explain to people, if you can, as briefly as possible, who the fuck is Shakur Stevenson fighting, and why is the entirety of boxing Twitter amped about it?
Because it has the opportunity to be a huge show me step through, just like we're talking about with Ian Gary, but even more of a early reach and a stretch is what Kid Austin and Floyd Schofield's going to make here. And it looks like it's gone through according to Twitter for whatever that's worth. But the reports seem to be that Oscar De La Hoya and Golden Boy, put up the stop sign, just like they did when Canelo early on wanted big fights like Austin Trout and Erislandy Lara. Like they tried to stop that too, but the fighter pushed through. This is what Schofield wanted, and his dad running his career. It's a big step up. It's against him, one of the top 10 pound for pound fighters in the world in Stevenson. Even if he's had some bad PR of late, he's still on a different level. This is a huge leap for a physical action fighter, but somebody who has not, look, it's one of those early parachute right into the middle of the biggest stage. And you're going to find out right away if you can swim. I think that's where the intention is really building. And I know some people are really focusing on the negative parts of this, but the kid wants to prove how great he is. I mean, he's making large comparisons on social media, bringing up when, Tyson did it at age 20 and just leaning into like, hey, when Ali beat Liston, what was he, 22? Like, what balls he has, Luke, we do embrace that here in the boxing space. And again, if the fighter wants to F around and find out, we'll be witnesses. That's the theater of this sport. Is it not, Luke?
Yeah, it is. I'll say this. This is an opportunity for Shakur to get some fans.
Yes.
Because I think that there's going to be a gap in skill, and Shakur's going to have an opportunity to style on him. And let's see if he takes it. Let's see how it goes. But, like, this could actually be good for him depending on what approach he ultimately takes in the fight. I look forward to it.
Dude, what a cash-in of your Money in the Bank contract that would be to enter of the elite status of boxing by going through this guy under these circumstances. Now, I'm sure I think people have been upset at his father, and they've shared this on X about his father saying that, look, like win or lose, it's so much money, and it lets us see what level we're at and what things we have to improve upon. And some people have framed that as, oh, they're only doing it for the money. But dude, the money has to be part of the equation here, does it not, Luke? This is prize fighting.
It does. Yes, I mean that's perhaps the most central one, to be quite honest with you.
Yeah.
But in any case,
get that bag, player. If you can get it now, sometimes you got to get it now, right? I mean, it doesn't always work. Even a great one like Fernando Vargas, who's like not in the Hall of Fame, but like a borderline guy. The totality of his career, the critics will look back and say, fought the real big ones. The Trinidad one, maybe too soon. It was like 20 years old. But sometimes, if you're that phenom and you're rising, you want to find out too, Luke, right? That's what the great ones want to do. How old was Leonard when he fought Hearns? I think he was like 22. I mean, it's wild, right? That's what.
Yeah. I was looking at, God, what Hearns fight was that? No, not Hearns. I was watching a Sugar Ray Leonard fight. He was like 29. God, who was it against? I forget. But he performed like so absurdly ably. Oh, God, I watched it over the weekend. I don't know.
You're talking about the Donnie Lalonde fight?
No, it was a different one. I forget.
All right.
All right.
I hope it wasn't the Terry Norris fight when Terry kicked the shit out of Leonard, and that was the last time I let boxing make me cry, Luke.
All right. I don't think it was that. I'll have to look it up. I had it saved. But that's it for our top 5, BC. With that in mind, let's go to where the fans get to ask us questions. It's time for DMs from the Jizzing Donks.
Yeah, I mean, it's a very uncomfortable sound, to be honest with you.
All right, BC, from AOPW_figures, what current MMA fighter still gets you excited about the sport? BC, we already know the answer for me. I mean, do I need to tell everyone?
I know Paul Craig would say Mackenzie Dern right now. Luke, okay, you know what I mean? Did you see that little bit that UFC Social did with Thanksgiving? Yeah.
I did, yeah.
I mean, look, Ilya Topuria is making a lot of grown men viciously erect, Luke, to be very fair with you, okay? All right? In the most pure fighting sense. You've got a phoner, my friend, okay? You know what I mean? Jake Hager was right. He was. Shout out to CT, right? He was right. But, I mean, who else belongs, like, collectively in that conversation? I mean, dude, I get really excited to see Islam fight every time because this, for this stretch, this is the best fighter in the world. I want to see how great he can be. Yeah, that's a guy that wakes me up, right?
I get pumped for Islam, but he doesn't. I'd be lying if I said I was like crazy excited. I was crazy excited to see Khabib fight.
You don't get secondhand Khabib vibes. Like Dale Jr. made his whole career off secondhand senior.
Dude, I respect
vibes, right?
Islam. I'm not going to sit here and talk bad about Islam. He's phenomenal. But
yeah, you would have a problem if you did, Luke, and I would lead those people. I would be their.
You're always. If I was Julius Caesar, you'd be the first one to drive a knife either to my back or my heart. Yes. I know that.
I'm like Homer's sister-in-law, Selma.
Yeah, and Patty.
Yeah, those broads. Yeah.
BC, so it's obviously going to be Ilya. It's going to be Shavkat Rakhmonov. You share that one at least, right?
Yes, I do. Dude,
is there anyone from outside of UFC that we like?
I'm going to really be riding the D of Dagestan by saying this, but Usman Nurmagomedov, doesn't that guy get you really excited?
No, he's a little bit, he's still risk averse and still coming into his own.
But I want to see how great he is too. I just want to keep seeing that guy compete. I don't know. Obviously there's a lot of exciting fighters we're not even focusing on. I mean, Poatan, dude, come on. In every category, Poatan.
Dakota Ditcheva certainly put in that list.
Yeah.
Anyone from one. I mean, you could sort of say like, honorable mention, Rug. You could kind of say that, it's a little fun.
Yeah, Malikin was, I think, before that.
Yeah, I mean that loss to Rug is like, just shows you how fraudulent that triple champ designation was when there was like, well, one of the belts is he's a bridger weight. It's like, okay.
We're not doing that, Chatri. Yeah.
All right. From Aurelius 92. Hey guys. Why was this weekend the most violent I've ever seen across football, across the NCAA and NFL? I don't know. Was it?
Yeah, we've got at least one of those clips in the feces that are coming your way. I think there was a lot of fights, but I don't know.
That's right. Ohio State and then Michigan.
The football I grew up with, Luke, they had fights in it all the time. You know what I'm saying? I like a smell of that man musk that's coming out of those sports right now. They got moxie.
I'll fart in your mouth. I don't care.
Okay. Wow. Okay. Yeah, it's wow. Yeah.
Look at Long Island Luke in studio going like this. I'll fart in your mouth too.
Okay, what am I, a first class section on a plane, Luke? What do you do? Come on.
I'll say this: every time one of those like big brawls happens between teams, the commentators are always like, "This is not what this sport is about." And I'm like, "Yeah, the fuck it is."
Dude, like, when I was a sophomore, I went to my first high school game, and that year my team, the Naugatuck Greyhounds, the same team by the way that beat Ansonia the night before Thanksgiving for the second straight year, Luke. First time that's happened since 1986. Shout out to the Greyhounds. The first game I went to was the year they were state champions, and I was standing behind the end zone. It was a day game before the lights came in the next year. And, dude, there was a massive brawl between Noggy and Woolkit in the end zone right in front of me, and the benches emptied, and, like, there was, like, legit one-on-ones. It was like a big hockey brawl, dude. It was awesome. And
why don't you live in a place that steals more Native American territory and then uses their names? How about that? Why don't you do that? Why don't you move there?
We respect our, there you go, Luke.
All right, from Jimmy_Reed, top to bottom, best pay-per-view card of the year for hardcore fans. I mean, it still would be 300, right?
I was just going to say, am I casual for saying it's still 300? That was a big one, Luke.
299 was good. 298 was good. Shit, all three of those
that run
were good.
leading into 300, even though we criticized how the 300 finish process ultimately went, it didn't feel well planned enough, but the depth and the big moments, Max, I mean, dude, that Max moment, that moment was something else, Luke.
It's the best moment of the year. It's the best moment of the year. For sure.
It's the best moment in a while, to be fair. Like, that's I remember how I felt forever, Luke, okay? And that's the beauty of the sport. Once in a while, this absolute traveling horror of a combat sport, Luke, boxing, and I'll lump mixed martial arts in that. Once in a while, they'll steal your heart. You know what I'm saying? They'll remind you how good it feels to jump in this bed, Luke. Luke, you can't change it. You're in the bed. You're in it.
Yeah. No, I'm in it.
Yeah. And
Dutch oven. Yeah. All right. From Johnny_Thump. Gas station hot dogs or horse meat? We need answers. BC, what's the most exotic animal you've ever eaten?
Knowingly? I mean, I had some low rent food from many a vendor. You never know. What did I have? Oh, dude, I've had a bunch. There was a stretch where I thought I liked octopus, and that ended very explosively, Luke. It turns out I was dead wrong. You know what I mean? And that was, you want to talk about moments you'll never forget? Max with 1 second to go against Gaethje, and how many times I threw up when I realized octopus wasn't for me. You know what I mean?
I don't believe in eating octopus for ethical reasons, but it does taste good. Like, what was so bad about it?
I don't know, but it was the night of Miguel Cotto against Austin Trout at the Garden, dude. I threw up for hours before that card started.
I was gonna say, have you ever had venison?
Yes. It was fine. I hate lamb, dude. I can't handle lamb.
You mean like lamb as separate from venison, like deer versus lamb?
Like, you go to like a cookout and lamb is the meat, you know what I mean? And then you're like, yeah, I can.
Awesome. I think
you're
totally
like, I can figure this out, right? I know what I'm doing here, taste wise, and then you end up.
These are not super gamey. Like, I've had wild boar. I've been wild boar hunting.
Yeah.
I've certainly had venison a million different ways.
I mean, do you have the same wanderlust I have? If I'm good, like we talk about in Japan, if I'm gonna eat horse, then it's gotta be a triple crown. At least finalist, right?
Did you see Craig Jones, to your point, did you see Craig Jones had dinner with Genki Sudo and put it on Instagram? Did you see this?
I did not. What happened in this?
They ate turtles, but the way that it went was they drank turtle blood, then they had turtle soup, then they drank, and I'm not kidding, turtle bile, and I'm not sure what they washed it down with, but like, dude, it was weird looking.
Are you trying to say that Craig Jones has kind of become like combat sports as Anthony Bourdain? Like, they should market this.
To a degree, a little bit, yes.
And just like go do hard drugs with prostitutes and have wild parties in different countries, and then like explain in a half serious, dry humor way, try to talk about it like it's normal. It probably would be a brilliant strategy on YouTube.
Yeah, it probably would be. I'll just end this by saying the gamiest thing I've ever eaten was rattlesnake, and it was fucking gross.
That doesn't. Yeah.
It was like really, really tough beef jerky that.
All right, here's a test of your meat manhood. When you go to Jamaica and the hot dogs are like bright red and have that thick skin, I don't know, dude. That's, I mean, I've done it many times.
How can you eat that and then not let me shit in your mouth? I don't understand that.
I don't think those are parallel. What? All right.
Last but not least, from PlayStation Xavi. Need to know what you guys think is the bloodiest fight in UFC history. I'll go UFC 80, Joe Stevenson versus BJ Penn.
Question.
You'll recall when he is choking Stevenson, he had already had a huge gash on his forehead. And as Penn squeezed the choke, it shot a 7-inch geyser out of the forehead of Joe Stevenson. That was a bad one. That was a bad one. That was a really bad one.
Bigfoot Hunt won.
That was a bad one. Also a bad one.
That was inhumane when round 5 started. I'm like, they're gonna die in there, like, you know what I mean? But I was wrong.
You know what gets me after all of these bloody ass fights is the person who interviews the winner, who by the way is also usually like either bleeding or covered in blood, like it's a fucking horror movie. And they're always like, I remember one time someone did this to Tim Kennedy. They were like, Tim, there was so much blood in this fight. How do you feel? He's like, it's just blood. I'm like, oh yeah, the thing that gives you life. Just that? Is that what just happened?
But it can go too far. Like in hindsight, for as awesome of a fight, what was it? Rory versus Lawler had an insane amount of blood.
Also a shit ton of blood on that one.
That was a gross amount of blood. That was very gross.
You know it's super bad when like they're trying to go for submissions and then they're slipping off because the combination of sweat and blood makes it way too hard to hold on. And then
it wasn't in the UFC. Sorry, it wasn't in the UFC, but Nicholas Dalby versus Ross Houston in Cage Warriors.
Yes, I've seen
that. It was a no contest due to the amount of blood.
Bloodbath. A bloodbath. Yes.
Such a gross.
BC, if you go to some of these cage surfaces outside the UFC that are like still like slippery, the blood pours on it, and then they're slipping in their own blood like a fucking Three Stooges skit gone bad or something. Yeah.
That's when you got to shut the whole promotion down, you know?
Just send them to the gulag. All right. With that in mind, BC, that's our top 5. Those are our DMs from Donks. It's time for BC's feces. What you got for us, bro?
Yeah, I scoured the globe, but I was sick when I was doing it, so don't judge me by my Shiat right here. But it's viral videos to make Luke smile. This one's called BC's feces. Shit. All right, Luke, it's time. It's time for MMA Fighters in the Wild, my favorite one, Luke. It starts off in Vancouver, WWE Survivor Series War Games, and there's the champ, Bilal Muhammad, getting that TKO rub.
He announced today that he's back to training, so the antibiotics worked. Good for him.
There we go. I can't wait to see who it's going to be, Shavkat or that other guy, Luke. Let's go over to Leon Edwards. He was at the Matchroom card on DAZN. It was Yafai versus Edwards, Sonny Edwards retiring after the loss. But did you hear that Leon told the DAZN announcers that he's headlining UFC London in March? No opponent named as of yet.
Yeah. People just forgot about him. Have you noticed that?
Yes. Who do you think it's going to be, Luke?
Let me see. I'm going to
Sean Brady, I'm thinking.
Sean Brady?
That's my guess, yeah.
That's a good one. I wouldn't mind that one. Sean Brady's a good one. There's also Jack Della Maddalena.
No, I've heard the Jack Della rumors strong on the old X, Luke. All right.
Yeah. They're gonna save him for what? The upcoming Australian card?
Could be. Well, yeah, I don't know anymore. All I know is that Los Angeles card's gonna be good, right? With Armin.
Yes. So I'm not sure.
Luke, Angela Hill has begun booty training for the anus elbows of Jillian Robertson. You remember those, Luke? This is the preparation by old Ange. Your thoughts?
I do like Angela Hill a lot.
Okay.
All right.
What kind of show is this? That's enough, Long Island, Luke. Thank you very much. Hello, my baby. Luke, Yoel Romero looked like a stud there in Dirty Boxing last week, but we forgot to show him coming into the ring. Check this out. Wow. Okay.
He's athletic enough to make that total tumble look like it was absolutely designed that way.
Yes. Luke, you would never walk again after that back bump. Never.
Not in a million years. I'd be paralyzed from the neck down.
Luke, did you hear what Johnny Meat told the Schmo about the realest of the real Mike Perry?
Is this an N-word drop?
Mike Perry is one of the realest niggas who ever lived. There it is.
There it is, Luke. Wow. I mean, 2%, Luke, you got to give him that respect, right?
Joe Rogan's best joke is when he talks about evolution. So it's a different topic, but it's a similar kind of concept, which is that he's like, we have similarity to DNA with chimps, like 99%. He's like, but that's really not as much as you think. Because if I gave you a ham sandwich and it was 99% ham and 1% shit, it's not a ham sandwich. There's a meaning. You're not, you know what I mean? Like, and of course he's talking about evolution. It's not the same thing, but
tell that to Don Davis, Luke. Okay. All right. You know what I mean?
Fair point. Yeah.
There you go. Luke, if you took Tukes out for ice cream and she's like, Daddy, is that Cain Velasquez? What would be your reaction?
I like how his legs are just kicking like a little kid.
He's enjoying himself.
Bro, this is how people roll up on me when I'm high as shit out in DC.
Dude, my best friend Bogo and I once went into Cumberland Farms in the 8th row deep, and there was a shirtless guy with a huge snake at like midnight just walking around, just like casually. And it's like,
you see fuckers like that in New York City all the time, though.
Yeah, but that's where I live, Luke. Okay, that's where I lived. That's the town that made me. All right, I'm one with that snake fella.
I bet.
Luke, the your favorite person that we now feature here, the real or cake lady. She's got another greatest hit for you.
Unbelievable whore. Look at that. I mean, just.
I found out, Luke, she speaks French. I don't know if she speaks English at all, but
oh, here we go. Yeah, just eat it all, you absolute goat. You fucking barn animal.
How does her fame end? What's the mountaintop moment?
Hopefully it's a Darwin Award and it's on camera. That's all I'm really asking for.
I mean, will she just present something that looks like shit, but then it will turn out to be cake, and then we'll be
I mean, she should just do to have someone pee on her and be like, oh, it's actually frosting. Meh.
All right, Luke, you mentioned how much you hate when people set up cameras at the gym and film themselves.
I can't stand it.
They do that at my gym too, and I can't believe it. This guy must hate this setup. Watch what happens next.
Could you row with less weight? Yeah. Yeah, go fuck yourself with the long stairs. Why don't you put some weight on that fucking rowing, you absolute dork?
Okay, wow, that was aggressive. Luke, there is new. Did you hear they have new milk for men? They're targeting men here. It has hit the stores.
Keep refrigerated.
Yes, definitely. But it requires this type of excretion process, Luke, to make it, okay? You know what I mean?
Bro, that's you and Long Island Luke after the show is over. I know.
Oh, boy. Well, I do usually have to pee so bad I can taste it at the end of that show. Wow. It's like, do I risk my reputation by pausing the show to urinate? That's what I'm up against. You know what I mean? That's
there's not much left of your reputation. Just go pee.
Luke, maybe Joe Rogan was right about the dangers of nuclear bombs, right?
Bro, that's a high-end British breakfast.
Yes, it is. Yeah,
they'll put that monstrosity, that fucking raccoon food. They'll put that on toast and be like, "Oh, this is grandma's fucking, famous whatever." They'll give it a name, and I'll be like, it's just garbage. Yes. Put some cigarette butts in there, and while you're at it, you fucking oaf.
Okay, Luke, let's go to the bar. It's last call after this, right? Wow. Okay, all right. That's something. Yeah.
Dude,
okay.
Oh, look at that. That guy is fucking great. His hair hasn't been combed since 1983, and his mouth, he was breathing through it, so he barely knew.
Luke, it's been a while, but we might as well bring it back. It's time for some elder abuse, all right? Let's go to the mall.
Yeah, real hard to hold on to an escalator, you infirm piece of shit.
Okay. Wow, Luke. All right. I mean,
keep tumbling, fuckhead.
Okay. Wow.
Good job not exercising in your 40s, and then geez. Okay, now I'm starting to feel bad.
Yeah.
Dude, you ever seen an escalator beat the fuck out of someone through multiple rounds?
This bad, dude. That's assault. Wow.
It's like, dog, stop trying to fall off of it and just ride it.
All right. We got a granny down in the next one.
Oh.
Oof. Yeah, that I don't feel good about showing that. Let's go to the golf course. Maybe this will make you feel better.
To hit it on the short grass on this hole. Let's hit it left.
Hope he's okay.
Hope he's dead.
That was like Leon Edwards against Usman, Luke, in the
Bro,
second
if there's
fight.
people dying in golf on TV, I'm watching.
Damn. Luke, we might as well even out the world with some child abuse, right? Haven't had this in a while.
I know a lot about that.
Oh. Okay. Keep your eye on the ball, indeed.
I mean, did you see how he was holding that bat in his position? Like, everything about it was amateurish, you know?
Luke, be careful if you ever send a son to youth football. If he has to line up against nose tackle number 69, child abuse on the way. Look at this guy, Luke.
Is that the lunch lady? Who is that? Jesus, who the fuck is this mongoloid? I mean,
oh, wow. That is... Okay, that is aggressive. Wow. All right.
They've got fucking barn animals out there. They just put pads on them and tell them to walk forward.
Luke, don't put Tukey on the motorsports until she's ready. Let's watch this kid. All right, hit the brakes. Yep, now, anytime now.
Yo, Evel Knievel is a beast.
Yeah. All right, time for tan line of the week. Luke, can you explain that?
I didn't want her to get burned.
Yes. Okay. Luke, you know the joy of like a perfect NYC dive bar, right?
Oh, yeah, they're the best.
Whether it's Jimmy's Corner outside of Times Square, Boxing Mecca, or any other McSorley's. I never knew about this next one. Watch this.
Come with me to my favorite dive bar in New York City. The reason why this one is my favorite is because they give you free hot dogs with every drink. The goated combo to get here, bro, is the all-American. You get a shot, a beer, and a glizzy for $5. Like, what the fuck? You can't find a deal like that anywhere in New York City. I'm sorry. They have a ton of other super cheap deals, too. The cheapest beer is only $3, and like I said, you get a glizzy with each one, bro. And beyond that, it's just a good vibe. You know, I love clubbing and all that, but you know, sometimes I just want a nice divey vibe with some sketchy characters, you know? And this is perfect for that. Definitely check it out if you're in the city. Oh, and bring cash. They only take cash.
So let me explain something to you. Let me explain to you how expensive New York City is and how impossible what they're talking about is there. BC, in 2003, I lived there briefly. A little longer than that, but in 2003, I was there.
Worst year of your life.
Well, it was the year my mom died, so thank you. Yes. Yeah, I know. Great. Jeez, you go too far, and then you end up having to have backtrack. But it's fine. I don't care. I went to a party. A buddy was like, "Hey, come to this party. We're all gonna meet at this bar," and this was 2003. And I ordered at age 23 a Red Bull and vodka. Remember those?
Oh yeah.
In 2003, at a bar in New York City, that was $19.
Oh, that I paid those in New York City.
Those were 19.
I know that pain.
That is how fucking insane that place is. And I was like, I remember being like, well, one and done. And I did. I had the one, and I left, and I bought a 40 on the way home, and then cried.
Exactly. Dude, I used to sneak canned beers into bars to avoid paying that when I worked in a factory and would go to the city for a weekend, and then realize you really can't pull this off. It's really not.
There's almost nowhere you can go to party.
Yeah, but if we could get a glizzy, a shot, and a hot dog for $5, is that even legal? I mean,
we should go there. We should go.
That should be the official bar of Morning Combat. It's
really
not far from MSG, Luke.
It's not. Okay, yeah, then we should go.
Well, no, Luke, don't you know about it?
It's 44th and 9th. I looked it up because I saw that video and was like, damn, I got to go.
So it's Hell's Kitchen?
Yeah, exactly.
Interesting. All right, let's go to the family photo. Fail.
How one shoe can ruin family. Okay.
Oh.
I was going to say that's the grossest looking hog I've seen in quite some time.
Luke, you've heard of a man cave, right?
Yeah, I wish I had one, but I don't.
How about a floor cave?
Oh yeah, send the fat fuck through. Yeah, that's a great. Oh, look at him. Yeah, hey, why don't you vandalize your own property, you fucking morons?
That's great. That's great. Well, Luke, the holidays are here, as you can see, so it is time for a celebration. Woohoo.
I didn't hear
well,
it.
Luke, if you can't hear it, you lose the bit. So that's it.
Okay.
We'll retire that one quietly and move on. Did you see this mascot take this L? I didn't know you could take an L this hard. Watch this.
Oh.
Oh.
Fucking shit.
Oh, that's a KO. That is wow.
Talk about adding injury to insult. Good God.
Oh, that is wild. All right, Luke, you know how much I love Reggie Jackson, and he is so cool, although most people in this house hate him. And I understand why they hate him, but, I have to have his back. But he's not as cool as this cat.
Yeah, smoking that doobs.
Yeah, unbelievable, right? Wow. What would you call that cat?
A puss.
Yeah, all right. Well, that's great. Good stuff right there. Luke, let's hit the football field. It was a big week for football fights. Ooh. Oh, that's a right cross. Look at that.
Yeah, but right to the face mask, it doesn't do
That's got to rattle the brain, probably, right?
A little bit.
Yeah. All right. How about a pool trick shot of the week? This was all I had this week. I was ill, Luke. You got to grade me on a curve, all right?
Oh. Didn't quite work, but you get an A for effort.
Yeah, Luke, that's all the ish I got. But next week, I've already recovered a batch that is just filthy, so it's going to be fantastic.
Well, you know what? I'll give you a break because I know you have full-blown AIDS, so it is what it is. Yeah. Let's remind everyone, first of all, this is not our normal time. Thank you to everyone who watched. Thumbs up if you're so inclined. Yes, that'd be great. Subscribe. Here's all our socials. Big Morning Kombat preview for UFC 310 on Friday. And don't forget, Morning Kombat at gmail.com. morningkombat@gmail.com to get in some dead wrongs, fan subs, to reach the show, the whole 9 yards. That's the place to go. BC, any thoughts before we get out of here?
Thank you, fans, for adjusting to the change in the schedule. But yeah, we're going to be back with a bang Friday, just like Luke said. Shout out to Long Island Luke as well. Nosita, shout out to you. Your word to your mother.
There he is. All right. You can finally go home. Go home.
Okay.
BC, get some rest. Good job today. Sorry, everyone, that we couldn't be there in studio, but it just was cursed from the get-go.
You know what, Luke? This is the best show in combat sports.
It can be. It absolutely can be.
Yeah,
it can be. But we're done. Let's get out of here. All right, that's Brian Campbell. I'm Luke Thomas. Thank you guys so much for watching. We'll catch you on Friday for a full UFC 310 preview. Until next time, may all of your gains be loyal.